What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Nail That Tone, a series that's all about helping you guys achieve some of the most legendary guitar tones of all time. In this episode, we're talking about the classic Alice in Chains record, Dirt, specifically about the song Them Bones. Again, there's so much cool stuff to talk about, as always, so let's get right into it. As always, with the Nail That Tone series, the first thing we're talking about is finger tone. Now, for finger tone, I really wanted to highlight the importance of the tuning here on this particular song, because we are in essentially kind of a drop D tuning, but to start with, instead of being an E standard, we're actually an E flat. So instead of having that drop D on the lowest string, we actually have a drop C sharp. So pretty important here when it comes to the tone is we have to get the tuning right. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about was the kind of main riff of the song. Instead of playing it just downstrokes, I actually played it kind of down up by kind of alternate picking that. So that's kind of what I heard when I heard the isolated track. So again, I can't confirm that that's how it was recorded, but it definitely sounds like it to me. So you guys can try that out, see if you get kind of better results when you guys are recording it or just playing it at home. So now we're talking about the gear that was used on this record. Now, the good thing about this record is that we actually get the information from Jerry Cantrell himself. So it's always good when we get it from the actual player, so we don't essentially have to speculate as fans as to what was used on the record. Now, what was used on the record was essentially a combination of three different amps. The first one being a modified Marshall, and this Marshall was again modded by Reinhold Bogner of Bogner Amps. And then we have probably an early rectifier. We have Jerry saying that he used a rectifier on this particular album, and then we also see him mentioning the Rockman headphone amp. So he says that they use essentially a combination of these three different amps, and they use the different amps to fill the different frequencies of sonic spectrum. So pretty interesting kind of way they used it, and again, a pretty interesting combination of different amps as well. So when it comes to what guitars were used on the record, it's probably safe to say that he used his G&L kind of guitars that he was always known for using and still uses to this day. And when it comes to guitar cabinets, it looks like they use some kind of Marshall guitar cabinet with some particular speakers. Again, a lot of the information that I was able to find on what was used on this record was actually from a website, and it seems to be pretty credible, and it does have a lot of the different sources and just a lot of cool material that you guys can check out, and I will link that website article in the description of my video. So now we're talking about what gear I used to get the tone you guys heard in the beginning of the video. So similar to the strategy that was used when recording the actual record, I used a combination of two different amps. I essentially used my triple rectifier and my original Bogner Fish preamp. Now, instead of using the rectifier for, say, the lower frequencies and the Bogner Fish for the higher frequencies, I just used a combination of both of them and kind of mixed them in pretty much at kind of equal volume. So you got a little bit of the Bogner sound mixed in with the Mesa sound. So I think I got a pretty interesting blend that sounded pretty similar to the actual record. So when it comes to the guitar cabinet, instead of using an actual guitar cabinet, which is usually what I like to do with this series, I actually decided to run my amps and preamps into my XFX and use an IR just for easier recording purposes. I did decide on a V30 IR, which is kind of just a stock IR that comes with the XFX 3. So I don't exactly remember the exact number, but I may check my preset again and probably list this information in the description of my video. So you guys can check that out if you happen to have an XFX 3. So when it comes to guitars, I pretty much just used what you guys saw in the beginning of the video. I used my Ibanez Gem Jr., which just has the stock pickup, so it's nothing special going on with the guitar side of things. So now we're talking about what other gear you could use to get a similar sound to what we hear on this record. Now, I'll be the first to admit that you do not need to go out and buy an original Bogner Fish or something similar. I think there are similar amplifiers that have a similar gain structure that could get you a tone that's very similar to what I pretty much got. I would certainly recommend probably getting the DSL kind of Marshall series. I think that series of amps is just a great value and would give you a similar kind of gain structure when we talk about kind of what the Bogner Fish kind of has to offer. Now, for the kind of recto side of things, you could always, of course, find yourself a used rectifier or something similar, maybe 5150, depending on kind of what your budget is and what you kind of want out of the amplifier. I think a rectifier certainly has a very unique sound to it, but again, used rectifiers can usually be found pretty cheap, and you don't need to go out and get an early revision or something like that. I think any Mesa rectifier along with kind of a higher gain Marshall amp will get you a nice blend that will be very similar to what we hear on this particular record. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it for this video. If you like this video and learned something cool about this album or this guitar tone, go ahead and smash that like button. leave a comment, and consider subscribing. We try to release videos like these on a weekly basis, so hopefully guys, we will see you guys in the next video.